Alright, I have a special commentary here. I'm with Chris, who is playing on the left side of the screen. Say hello, Chris.
Hello.
So Chris is going to help commentate this video and tell us what was going through his mind, I'm sure, as this game plays out.
Alright, I'll try to explain my torturous thought process. My first thought was pretty easy. I'm playing Gabe here, and I'm thinking, okay, I need to ice up HQ as fast as humanly possible because Account Siphon kind of sucks.
It's a good card, and Gabe almost certainly has it. So we got some installs and taking a money. What ice do we have there?
Remember right, that might be an Enigma. It's something fairly cheap, and I think the installed asset there is a pad campaign, because I'm thinking, well, if he wants to spend his starting credits trashing my assets, then go ahead. That's a good trade for me.
Right, especially before it's rezzed. You leave an R&D open, so let's see if he gets a score. Oh, that's a fetal AI.
Yep. Which is kind of unfortunate to lose early, but still rather have that than the risk of Account Siphon, and really, that's one of the agendas I don't mind if he hits, because I have a chance of kind of disrupting. A lot of criminals don't run a whole lot of recoveries, so...
So you got a ferry and an inside job. Unfortunately, I see you missed the sneak door, but those are two very good cards to get out of the way. So yeah, that's a big... Yeah, he did get 2 points, and that sucks, but otherwise, if you ignore the fact that he got points, that was all very good for you.
Yeah.
So now he can't even afford to trash a pad campaign. Oh.
Actually, he can.
Oh, okay. I thought he starts with 5 and he took 2 money for the fetal AI.
Yeah, I think he actually drew credits between the runs.
Oh, okay, that makes sense because I missed his other clicks.
Now he's at 0, which is not a bad place for me to see things. So now I play my celebrity gifts, and
money.
suddenly I have a lot of money.
So that's NAPD contracts. That's an agenda that requires 4 credits to steal. So showing it to him right now is extra great. Look at the things that you can't have.
Pretty much.
Look at the things you can't afford.
Look at these things. They're not for you. Alright, now that I've got 7 more credits, thanks to the magic of tiny giraffes, I think I iced things up here. I'm trying to remember where this goes next.
I hope we see more cards exploring the teacup animal genre of marketing.
Jinteki exclusive.
Yeah, I think they got that stuff nailed down. Is that a Sarugi?
Not sure. I couldn't really see it very well, but it could be.
I'm gonna go ahead and say it's a Sarugi. We're gonna want to be icing up that R&D pretty soon, though.
Yeah.
It's a good thing you have some ice. You have a Himitsu, it looked like. What else did you have?
There was a Wall of Thorns in there, too.
Oh, okay. Oh, he dumped the sneak door.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he has another one.
Okay. Sneak door is such an important card for Gabe.
There's some ice on R&D.
It looks like that ice is right in line there.
Install Festival.
Here we go. Sundew. Is there a Sundew train? What do we call the Sundew? I guess
awesome.
I guess it's just Sundew. I did see you playing a game later in this day with Sundew, and the runner just... Maybe it was this game. I don't want to be spoiling things. But there was some game where the runner just was not trashing the Sundew, and I was just so sad for that runner.
Yeah, I don't think that was this one. I think
so. Hopefully Calvin
pretty good about
gets in there. All right, so he's getting some Armitage code busting going.
Yeah.
Alright, that looks like his turn. That was a turn.
That was a turn.
Alright, so now you got a lot of ice, which is what you need. You probably want some more of your assets as well.
Yeah. I'm trying to make sure I have enough money, though, that he can't run on anything I care about and then turn around and run on HQ with an Account Siphon, though. My goal here is to keep the ice on HQ unrezzed for as long as possible, just so he doesn't know what he needs to break it. I'm guessing that he probably has a special order, as the criminals often do. And looking at his hand now, I can see that's exactly what he has.
There it is. And looks like maybe a siphon and an inside job, something like that. That's just a criminal hand. Yeah, the idea with the a lot of times when a criminal comes into HQ, they're just scouting, and so if I have like one agenda in 5, especially with your NAPD, I would oftentimes just let him in and take that risk. So in other words, saying no, you can't see what ice I have.
Absolutely.
And that's just another testament to how powerful Account Siphon is.
So here he is killing the Sundew.
Oh, and so he knew what that card was.
No, here he's going for right.
So that was a smart play. He knew exactly what that card was. I mean, I guess the ice or the asset you have installed down could have been the NAPD, but he just kind of figured it wouldn't have been.
Right.
So that was actually a pretty smart play on his end, but it did deplete his resources once again. They got an early start here. Early points.
He's got 4 points on the board. That's not right. Not super close to winning, but close enough that I probably can't afford too many more trades like that where I trade agenda points for momentum.
Right. So I think he's trying to figure out if there's some click missing there with the Armitage or something.
Yeah, the Armitage has 1 on it, and we were trying to figure out where it was. So
where'd the money go?
We counted up like how many money was supposed to be on it and how many he clicked, and figured, well, just go with how many it's supposed to have.
He just didn't load up enough initially.
Yep.
I like to, cards like Armitage, I like to just load up the number of uses you have on it. So you just put, advancement tokens, I'll usually use or something, to show that Armitage had 6 uses. Alright, so it looks like you have a Caprice Nisei now.
In hand.
And how are you liking Caprice and Replicating Perfection?
She's been interesting. I actually find her most useful, though, in exactly this matchup because she's a fantastic way to dodge account siphons. Although, here I'm feeling cocky and not even putting her on the account siphons. I mean, she also makes a pretty great remote defense because with Replicating Perfection, if she catches them, they probably only have, at best, 2 clicks left to try to get in there. And often they have less than that. So she's actually pretty nasty for Replicating Perfection.
Just like another click you're going to have to spend to get in here, probably.
And
so
maybe more.
I noticed you installed Caprice with, I think that's the Nisei there. Is there any reason why you installed the Nisei now? Just because, you can't score it out next turn? Was that just because you felt that server was more secure than HQ?
A little bit of that, and enough of my deck requires multiple clicks to advance. He's not really targeting anything that doesn't have advancement counters anyway. So I'm figuring I can get that down there, and then I'm probably going to try and just rush it out here, because if I can get a scored Nisei on the board, that changes the dynamic a whole lot, both because it means that he has to spend a ton more credits to steal something, because he has to be able to get into it twice. And see, I'm icing up that server now.
Right.
And also it gives me a certain amount of protection against account siphons. It's really hard for him to want to account siphon if he knows I can just sort of make it go away after he spends the money to get in. So I'm taking a little bit of a risk here, but I would really like to get an Nisei on the board.
No, this right here looks pretty solid. Especially you have the Caprice Nisei. Behind that you have 2 pieces of ice. He didn't have any breakers out yet, and his econ is relatively low. So
yeah,
this looks pretty solid.
2 clicks to get 2 credits.
So we went looking for a fairy.
And even at this point, if he managed to siphon you, it wouldn't do a whole lot. So you'd still have 11 credits left, 12 credits that you could use to res that remote server ice.
Yeah.
Oh, I think you might have taken... We'll have to look at that. You might have taken that twice this turn.
Huh, that would be embarrassing.
I'm sure someone in the YouTube comments will tell us.
Yes.
But that's the type of thing that both players kind of need to enforce. I'm not sure. I couldn't tell.
It's clearly my rightful due for letting him refill his Armitage after he didn't load it up. The game.
I guess that's one. Yeah, I guess that's one way to look at it. I have an anti-glare filter now on this camera, but there's still a lot of glare there at the top. But those cards are not rezzed yet, so maybe it'll be better once they res.
Yeah. Draw. Advance. All right.
So you got the Nisei.
Scoring out the Nisei. He didn't even try to run on it, which was kind of fine by me.
Yeah, I think he just figured he wasn't going to be able to get in, so he just tried to build up for future turn. Although that Nisei being scored, like you were just saying, it puts it changes the dynamic of the game completely, because Siphon is sort of out off the table at this point, which criminals depend on a lot. So it's amazing how just that one agenda changes the face of the game so much.
Yeah. And in his defense, there are enough other agendas on the board already that he's seen that could have been. There's no way he would have known that was necessarily a Nisei. I could have been trying to bait with an APD contacts, but this time it was a Nisei, and I'm certainly going to take advantage of that.
And you would certainly rather have a Nisei scored than any other agenda in your deck, I think.
Oh yeah. In this deck, Niseis actually work kind of like AstroScript tokens do for NBN decks. Once I get one, I can almost always parlay that into another scored agenda, ideally a Nisei. So it's a little slower, a little weirder looking, but Nisei trains kind of are a thing.
So you install a remote off camera. Hopefully we'll figure out what that is.
Yes.
Is that another Sundew?
It's either a Sundew or a pad campaign.
Right. The Jackson's floating there too. And this the Sundew has existed far too long.
Yeah, he's not going after that Sundew, which I'm okay with.
Yeah. I know that when I'm playing against Replicant, there's a Sundew. That suddenly becomes my top priority. Like, I will do almost anything, which that's why it's such a powerful card.
Yeah. If you just ignore them, then they'll just sit and, you know...
It's totally unacceptable for me to ignore it. Unless if I have a win, like a path to victory,
Alright, well, install the Sneak Door. He's going in.
Alright, well, let's go ahead and...
Oh, Tsurugi.
And there's a Tsurugi there. Which he does have a fairy for, so it's not a terrible surprise, but it does mean there's no longer a Tsurugi on the board.
Unless you don't want to.
What do you mean there's not a Tsurugi on the
Or
board?
no longer a fairy on the board.
Yeah, no longer a fairy, right. Yeah, no, you gotta res it because you gotta get rid of the fairy, and now it basically blocks his future sneak doors. It's gonna be really expensive to get through that without parasiting it to death, which is the downside of Tsurugi.
It's very much the downside of Tsurugi.
Alright, so that was his second click, I believe.
Fourth runner remote.
And I think he got his Gabe money. Alright, yeah, so he's a pad campaign.
He ran on the pad campaign. Decide if he wants to trash it.
Pad campaign is such an amazing card. Because it's always such a hard decision. You know? Is there any other card that consistently provides that sort of decision?
I don't know, it's definitely up there. Some of the Adonis campaigns, I guess, but...
Adonis campaign, you always trash though if you get to it. You know, if you have the money, it's never really a decision.
Eve is harder.
Eve's a harder decision, sure. Alright, so here's another one of these. So this, it looks like a Field AI. This way. I guess it could be an NAPD or...
Yeah, sometimes I do the NAPDs twice just because then I have an extra action on the turn and don't have to worry about having to discard a card, but...
Right. Well, especially if you feel secure enough in your economy and your ice. It's so interesting to me. Like, this is the second time you've you install it without advancing, and then advance the next turn. It's really it's just unusual, but it seems it works out just. Like I think what you were saying before, where they, especially with Jiteki, they just don't expect that it's an agenda if you install it naked. They're like, you know, brain trust is not as common.
I actually took out all the brain trust in this deck and replaced them with NAPD contracts.
Which it seems so unintuitive. Like, you know, why would you do that? Why would you replace a 3 for 2 with a 4 for 2? But it makes total sense in the context of this deck. I think that's like the third time you've seen that.
He keeps finding that hedge fund. I feel kind of bad for him.
Yeah, and you already have one there in archives. So you might have even played the other one at this point.
Yeah, he's going back in.
Oh, you forgot that earlier, I guess. Oh,
he found the...
Oh, this is horrible because he only has 1 credit.
He cannot actually afford to steal it.
It's so bad.
So this is the worst case scenario for the runners.
He loses 2 cards.
You don't have enough money, do you?
Oh, why 3? What else? What was the?
I think the other one was already on the board there.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Oh no, it wasn't. It was the Tsurugi. He ran on.
Oh, that's what happened, right?
Yeah, he ran on the Tsurugi and he
did not pay for all the Tsurugi subs.
Yeah. And I guess in hindsight, he should have paid for 1 less, just so he could have stolen that.
Yeah.
Right? Because he has 1 card left. But then, I mean, your deck doesn't have Neural MP, does it?
No.
So, I mean, that's something you have to be worried about with Jinteki, though. You have to assume that they have Neural MP, so it's not always wise to...
Well, if nothing else, he's made me ice up Archives a little more, which is a little bit absurd, but, you know,
well,
I can't have him sneak dooring around.
He's not really been running on HQ too much either, so...
Finally played that hedge fund, got that out of my hand, so we can stop.
I think if I were him, I would have done an HQ run before I did another sneak door run, just because you want to get them to constantly be spending their money rezzing ice, you know, and like you really want 2 stacks ice on both those servers.
Yeah.
You want equal pressure, basically.
Now here's some kind of funny stuff happened, if I remember right.
Is this where the clown came in and released all the balloons?
No, this is where I throw some things into the trash. One of which is in fact a Nisei. A Nisei agenda, Nisei Mark II.
Wow.
I threw it in there because I'm not going to have a good chance to score it. I'm actually kind of regretting it at this point because I think...
Well, you have the Jackson Howard, so it's not totally absurd.
I have the Jackson Howard, and I'm also counting on the fact that with Sneak Door, he's probably never going to actually run an Archives and bother looking.
No, you know, it's funny you say that because I've been playing Gabe a lot recently with Sneak Door, and I'm always thinking about that now when they trash cards. I'm like, is that... So I've spent a lot of clicks checking Archives for an agenda for exactly that reason. Just I know people, once Sneak Door's on the board, they tend to feel safer about dropping agendas there. So what did you install there? I missed that. Must be an agenda.
It's probably something that I wish was another Nisei because Niseis are the best thing in the world. But
okay, here's where you install two more assets.
Oh, this if I remember right, those are pretty great assets.
I think I remember as well, but we'll leave it as a surprise.
Yeah,
Oh, you got another Nisei. Do you remember what that ice was over HQ? Oh, you said it's Enigma or something like that,
I
right?
thought it was Enigma. It might be. It might be Roto Turret.
Was that another Nisei you just tossed?
Might be. I tossed another agenda, that's for sure. I'm pretty sure I remember ending the game with 2.
And Calvin here is stuck in sort of a bad spot. He doesn't have a lot of money, and there's just a lot of stuff going on your side of the board.
Yeah, this is the ideal situation for a replicated perfection deck. Is so many targets that it's not clear what he needs. Like so many things he needs to deal with,
Right.
And not enough time to deal with any of them. And to deal with any of them requires him to run on, at the moment, unknown and probably harmful ice before he can even make the run on the Jackson Howard or the Sundew or whatever it is over there, let alone the agenda server. So he's kind of in a bad spot. I'm sitting there with, looks like, somewhere over 20 money. So pretty much every piece of ice is a pretty scary threat when he doesn't have much in the way of breakers out. Looks like he did just put out a Mimic, though, so at least he can get through the Sarugis, although they're still pretty costly.
Still pretty costly. That's still a pretty good exchange for you. Yeah, like what you were saying, just to extend what you're saying, you feel so overwhelmed. To take care of any one of these problems, you'd have to spend your whole economy. Yeah, so you res... Oh, a Roto Turret.
Yeah.
Right, so he good thing he has that Mimic out. So he is going to be able to siphon.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hit you too hard.
Nope, I actually don't Nisei here. I think about it, but I'm thinking, actually, I'd rather have that to guarantee a score later, because I can afford to lose 5.
Right.
It sucks giving him funding, because that's been his biggest problem so far, is that he's just been kind of broke. But I'm still willing to make that trade and gamble that I can just tax him enough trying to get anywhere and overcome that giant money pile he just landed on.
Do you have any tag punishment in your deck?
No, not a bit. So I'm pretty much just hoping that he'll do something crazy like install
A resource?
Yeah, install some resources for me to trash, maybe.
Right.
That would be nice.
Mandatory draw.
Alright. Looks like you just got... I think that was an Enigma. That looked like an Enigma to me.
That might be the Enigma.
Second quick. So
Wait a second. That's like your 5th hedge fund you've played this. I feel.
You know, hedge funds.
third quick.
Yeah, that hedge fund just basically erased that account site, ignoring the fact that he got the money too.
Yeah.
But hedge
So
fund.
I just advanced that thing, and just for fun, I'm not sure you can see this on camera, but here's where I'm resing 2 more Sundews.
That's definitely 2 more Sundews. So that's going to be 6 money coming in every. And this is where I think this is where it. Yeah, at this point, I think his turn needs to be run on a central, go trash those 2 naked Sundews.
Yeah, they're just sitting there completely naked, but, you know, again, like, I'm sitting there with what looks like it could be an agenda. Something is advanced behind some ice. Like, where do you spend your time? Where do you spend your effort? And this is really what Jinteki in general, but Replicating Perfection in particular, really excels at, is setting up situations where suddenly the runner has to do a bunch of things in a very limited time frame. Like, suddenly 2 Sundews came online, and there's an agenda score threat. And to run on any of them, you have to spend a click running somewhere else first. Where do you spend your money? Where do you spend your time?
It really disrupts the runner in a way that other corps don't as much. You know, like it puts a lot of pressure on the runner to, you know what I mean? It seems like other corps don't have that. I mean, maybe that's just a function of all these remote servers, you know?
Well, it does. I think I know what you mean. Jinteki, both the Jinteki IDs, but really Replicating Perfection especially, fundamentally change some rules of the game in some kind of major ways. Like, the runner really has to play very differently just having that extra rule about having to run on a central first. Sort of like the personal evolution one breaks the rule, like, you think you're safe without running, you can still take damage just randomly.
Just scoring out an agenda, right?
Even if you do nothing.
Score out a clone retirement, that's also a neural EMP.
And that's really one of the things I think that Jinteki does that's kind of neat as a corp, is they really do force the runner to adapt and play in different ways in a way that's very different from, say, Hospiroid that just, you know, gets more money.
Haas Biroid changes it up in its own way with, I think, the Biroid Ice are very powerful ice that you can click through. That changes up the...
Oh, this is unfortunate. He's running on R&D, but you can't really see it through the glare there, but his knight that he's counting on to get through that is on my Himitsu Bako. So he's going to spend some money to get through it, but that's kind of a worst-case scenario for anyone running chess pieces, because he's going to pay to get through.
This is exactly what Himitsu Baku does.
And then it just runs away, and his knight just goes away. And yes, it sucks that I have an open R&D for a turn, but on the other hand, that's not the worst thing in the world. I've got Jackson there if he tries any indexing nonsense. I'm gambling that he's not going to pull 3 points off the top here. And I can put Himitsu Baku back next turn, but he doesn't get his knight back. So, all in all, that's a pretty good scenario for me. 1, 2, and in fact, there is the Himitsu Baku along with some other terrible ice nonsense.
How often do you think you recall Himitsu Baku?
Surprisingly little, but
and that's a new remote server there, just in the camera frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, every once in a while though it'll pay off if it gets a parasite on it or.
Yeah, it doesn't usually get parasites on it unless it's in the middle of like a mid-run clone ship data sucker.
Right, in which case it's probably going to die.
Which actually does kill the Himitsu Baku, but you know, chess pieces happen sometimes, and alright, here's the inside job. I don't res the extra thing. I just let him in because whatever he's going to get, it's not too scary to me.
Right. Did he take his money for that? Should have net 1 from that. I think he did.
We actually had a discussion about that in the middle of the game because it cost him 2 for the inside job. Here we're counting it up.
Total. Mm-hmm. So.
And then he gets 3 back, so it really cost him 1 to get through there.
Right.
Sorry. I didn't res this, so you didn't have to pay for this.
Oh, right. Here's us juggling the credits back and forth, tracking the
Somehow he just suddenly lost 4 credits and gained 4 credits.
Yes.
In the same discussion.
So it cost you 2, you gained 2, you should have broken even. Or, I'm sorry, you should have gained 1. Because, right, so I spent it out, I brought it back. Yeah.
Alright.
I think you guys had that wrong.
Yeah, we might have.
Because I think he loses 1 instead of gains 1. But anyway.
It's okay, we'll get on YouTube.
That pays back for potentially the Sundew mistake.
Yeah.
Netrunner, people make mistakes.
It's true.
Very dangerous thing.
Second?
Yeah. You have to basically build your deck to trigger that because it's optional.
So at this point, looks like you could score out another agenda here, whenever you want.
Yep, I'm taking it kind of slow because I can't risk leaving R&D open for a full turn. Like there's too many things that can go wrong there.
Right.
And I'm pretty confident he can't get into that remote because it has 2 pieces of ice and Caprice Nisei guarding it, so that's pretty safe. I'm still going to score it out now that I have a chance.
Okay, so you got a false lead. And so false leads in your deck are really interesting. Do you want to describe how you use them, why they're there?
Yeah, they're basically there as Nisei scoring tokens, basically. Like, with a false lead on the board, I can almost always turn a false lead into some kind of agenda score, just because if I put down an agenda and advance it once, you basically have to start running on a remote right away. Or you have to run a central right away and then run on a remote, because if you do anything else for that first click, then by the time you actually run on a remote, I can use false lead and cancel the rest of your turn.
Take away 2 clicks and then guarantee run.
Yeah, it's a really good example of what we were talking about before, of Jinteki sort of forcing you to make an action all at once, like whether or not you're prepared. So there's the enigma.
Yep. So that was a knight on the outer piece of ice and then a siphon. So he was just betting that whatever was in between there was not going to keep him out.
Was a sentry probably. He has the mimic on the board, but
a barrier would have stopped him as well.
I guess he doesn't have a barrier breaker.
Any Code Gator barrier would have stopped him.
Yeah. I think the other one actually is probably the Himitsu Baku again. So
you take that gamble a lot though as criminal with siphons. I often use the siphon in very risky ways just because the upside is so great and it doesn't have a huge downside. If it fails, then you fail to trigger a siphon, but.
Yeah, but it costs 0 to play.
It costs 0 to play. Exactly. There's not a. So yeah, I think he catches it, but you can't move the knight like that.
Yeah, he's gonna catch that in a moment.
Yeah, there we go. Way to go, Calvin.
Get it somewhere else.
Starting from there, he moves it to that one.
Yeah, so he doesn't want you to just trash that top piece of ice and kill his knight.
Yeah.
So right now, the knight represents a big part of his...
Yeah.
Oh, so now he's in trouble. This is where...
Here's where I make my move.
Yeah, and he has to... So he just lost the game.
Yeah.
Because you have the... Well, he didn't lose the game, because if you use the false lead, then...
Now he's lost the game.
Well, not the game, because if you... Unless that's a three-pointer.
Well, now the game's lost because he's used 2 clicks and I have a Nisei token. There's no way he's getting in there.
Oh, the Nisei token, right. Yeah, the Nisei token is where the... But before that, if he got... Like, if he ran in...
If I'd sacrificed the false lead,
Yeah.
it wouldn't have actually gotten me through. Because I would have lost the points from it. It would have only been a...
I think an important lesson here is when your opponent has scored a false lead, you've got to carefully consider what their intentions are.
I think the other thing here, though, is when your opponent has a scored Nisei token, like, it's really tempting to not throw a bunch of resources at something because you know they'll just ignore it.
Cancel it, right.
Cancel it with a false lead. Or cancel it with the Nisei token, but you've got to make them burn it on something. If it just sits there, then they're just going to...
They're going to wait till the most optimal time for them.
Or just never use it. Like, I never used it in this game because he never made me use it, which meant that I just got to sit there and score out that remote nonstop. I mean, here's the game end with the last Beetle AI.
So that's a pretty traditionally speaking, pretty suboptimal breaker or agendas that you scored out. Like a lot of those agendas there, especially the top 3, are not ones that people like. That's a bad ratio, right? You're not supposed to score those out.
Ideally, those are the ones that he hits. But on the other hand, he hit 2 of them, and they definitely cost him some momentum early.
Yeah, for sure.
You can see here he's showing me his indexing that he was saying he was really wishing I would spend the Nisei token. He was hoping I'd spend it on the account siphon so he could try and do an indexing run.
Oh yeah, that's really
Jackson
interesting.
Howard's on the board too, so that wouldn't have been a good.
Yeah, he'd have to kill the Jackson Howard before doing that. He needed to kill all the Sundews. Yeah, I guess replicant perfection. You can't let him get into that mode, and at the same time, you can't let them get into that mode while also not just totally trashing your econ. So it's a tough nut to crack.
It's a balance, but like any asset-based economy, Wizard makes replicating perfection very sad. Scrubber, if for some reason you're running those, or Parisha, or whatever the Shaper Ice is for it.
Oh yeah, the program.
You've got to track the assets. It's like eating your vegetables. Like it sucks. It hurts to do it, but if you don't, you're going to be really sorry.
You're going to have a bad time. All right, so they're getting started with the second game here. We'll end this one and come back with the second one eventually. So thanks for watching, and thanks Chris for co-commentating.
Thanks for having me, Brian. Sneak door.